Why the Little Frenchman Wears His Hand in a Sling. By Edgar Allan Poe. 1850. It's on my visiting cards sure enough, and it's them that's all o' pink satin paper, that any gentleman that places may behold the intheresthan words, Sir Patrick o' Grandison, Baronet, 39, Southampton Row Russell Square, Parish o' Bloomsbury. And should ye be wantin' to discover who is the pink of perliteness quite, and the later of the hot ton in the Howl City o' Lonan, why it's just meself. And faith that same is no wonder at all, so be plast to stop curlin' your nose, for every inch o' the 6 weeks that I've been a gentleman, and left aft with the bog throthing to take up with the baronessy, it's Patrick that's been living like a holy emperor, and getting the edication and the graces. Och! And wouldn't it be a blessed thing for your spirits if ye could lay your 2 peepers just upon Sir Patrick o' Grandison, Baronet, when he is already dressed for the hopperer, or stepping into the brisky for the drive into the Hyde Park. But it's the elegant big figure that I ave, for the Rosson o' which all the ladies fall in love with me. Isn't it my own swat sylph now that'll measure the 6 foot, and the 3 inches more nor that, in me stockins, and that am excatingly well proportioned all over to match? And it is rarely more than 3 foot and a bit that there is, anyhow, of the little old furriner Frenchman that lives just over the way, and that's a ogling and a goggling the whole day, and bad luck to him, at the pitty witty Miss Threstrackle that's my own next door neighbor, God bless her, and a most party colour friend and acquaintance. You percave the little spalpeen is summit down in the mouth, and wears his left hand in a sling, and it's for that same thing, by your lave, that I'm going to give you the good Rosson. The truth of the whole matter is just simple enough, for the very first day that I com'd from Connaught, and showed my swat little sylph in the straight to the widdy, who was looking through the windy, it was a gone case althagither with the heart o' the pitty Miss Threstrackle. I percaved it, ye see, all at once, and no mistake, and that's God's truth. First of all it was up with the windy in a jiffy, and then she threw open her 2 peepers to the utmost, and then it was a little gould spyglass that she clapped tight to one o' them, and divil may burn me if it didn't spake to me as plain as a peeper could spake, and says it, through the spyglass, Och! The tip o' the mornin' to ye, Sir Patrick o' Grandison, Baronet, Mavourneen, and it's a nate gentleman that ye are, sure enough, and it's meself and me fortin just that'll be at your sarvice, dear, any time o' day at all for the asking. And it's not meself ye would have to be bait in the perliteness, so I made her a bow that would ha broken your heart altogether to behold, and then I pulled aff me hat with a flourish, and then I winked at her hard wid both eyes, as much as to say, true for you, you're a swat little cratur, Mrs. Trackle, me darlint, and I wish I may be drowinth dead in a bog, if it's not meself, Sir Patrick o' Grandison, Baronet, that'll make a whole bushel o' love to your leddyship, in the twinkling o' the eye of a Londonderry parody. And it was the next mornin', sure, just as I was making up me mind whether it wouldn't be the perlite thing to send a bit o' right into the widdy by way of a love litter, when up com'd the delivery servant with an elegant card, and he towled me that the name on it, for I niver could read the copperplate printin' on account of being lift-handed, was all about Mounseer, the Count, a goose, look AC, mater de dons, and that the howl of the devilish lingo was the spalpeeny long name of the little old furriner Frenchman as lived over the way. And just with that in come the little Willian himself, and then he made me a broth of a bow, and then he said he had only taken the liberty of doing me the honour of the giving me a call, and then he went on to palaver at a great rate, and divil the bit did I compare hind what he would be after the tilling me at all, excepting and saving that he said pully wow, woolly wow, and towled me, among a bushel o' lies, bad luck to him, that he was mad for the love o' my witty Miss Threstrackle, and that my witty Mrs. Trackle had a punchin' for him. At the hearin' of this, ye may swear, though, I was as mad as a grasshopper, but I remembered that I was Sir Patrick o' Grandison, Baronet, and that it wasn't althagither gentle to let the anger get the upper hand o' the perliteness, so I made light o' the matter and kept dark, and got quite sociable with the little chap, and after a while what did he do but ask me to go with him to the widdies, saying he would give me the fashionable introduction to her ladyship. Is it there ye are? Said I thin to meself, and it's through for you, Pathrick, that ye're the fortunatest mortal in life. We'll soon see now whether it's your swat self, or whether it's little Mounseer Mater Didons, that Miss Threstrackle is head and ears in the love wid. With that we went aft to the Widdies next door, and ye may well say it was an elegant place, so it was. There was a carpet all over the floor, and in one corner there was a 40-penny and a juice harp and the divil knows what else, and in another corner was a Sophie, the beautifulest thing in all nature, and sitting on the Sophie, sure enough, there was the swat little angel, Miss Threstrackle. The tip o' the mornin' to yet, says I, Mrs. Trackle, and then I made sich an elegant obati sanchi that it would ha quite althagither bewildered the brain o' yet. Woolly woo, pulley woo, plump in the mud, says the little furriner Frenchman, and sure Mrs. Trackle, says he, that he did. Isn't this gentleman here just his reverence Sir Pathrick O'Grandison, Baronet, and isn't he althagither and entirely the most particular friend and acquaintance that I have in the whole world? And with that the Widdy, she gets up from the Sophie, and makes the swattest curtsy nor iver was seen, and then down she sits like an angel, and then, by the powers, it was that little spalpeen Mounseer Mater Didons that plumped hisself right down by the right side of her. Ochhon! I expected the two eyes o' me would ha come out of my head on the spot, I was so irate mad. However, bait who, says I, after a while. Is it there ye are, Mounseer Mater Didons, and so down I plumped on the lift side of her ladyship, to be even with the willen. Boderashin. It would ha done your heart good to percave the elegant double wink that I gived her just thin right in the face with both eyes. But the little old Frenchman he niver begin to suspect me at all, and disparate hard it was he made the love to her ladyship. Wowly wow, says he, pulley wow, says he, plump in the mud, says he. That's all to no use, Mounseer Frog, Mavourneen, thinks I, and I talked as hard and as fast as I could all the while, and throth it was meself just that debruked her ladyship completely and entirely, by Rosson of the elegant conversation that I kept up with her all about the dear bogs of Connaught. And by she gived me such a swat smile, from one end of her mouth to the ither, that it made me as bold as a pig, and I just took hold of the end of her little finger in the most delicatest manner in nature, looking at her all the while out o' the whites of my eyes. And then only percave the cuteness of the swat angel, for no sooner did she observe that I was after the squazzing of her flipper, than she up with it in a jiffy, and put it away behind her back, just as much as to say, now thin, Sir Pathrick O'Grandison, there's a bither chance for ye, Mavourneen, for it's not altogether the gentle thing to be after the squazzing of my flipper right full in the sight of that little furriner Frenchman, Mounseer Mater Didons. With that I gived her a big wink just to say, let Sir Pathrick alone for the likes o' them thricks, and then I went AC to work, and you'd have died with the diversion to behold how cleverly I slipped my right arm between the back o' the Sophie, and the back of her ladyship, and there, sure enough, I found a swat little flipper all a-waiting to say, the tip o' the mornin' to yet, Sir Pathrick O'Grandison, Baronet. And wasn't it meself, sure, that just gived it the last little bit of a squazzy in the world, all in the way of a commincement, and not to be too rough with her ladyship? And och, Boderashin, wasn't it the gentlest and delicatest of all the little squazzies that I got in return? Blood and thunder, Sir Pathrick, Mavourneen, thinks I to meself, fate it's just the mother's son of you, and nobody else at all, that's the handsomest and the fortunatest young bog trotter that ever come out of Connaught. And with that I gived the flipper a big squazzy, and a big squazzy it was, by the powers, that her ladyship gived to me back. But it would ha split the seven sides of you with the laughin' to behold, just then all at once, the consated behaviour of Mounseer Mater Didons. The likes o' sich a jabbering, and a smirking, and a parley wowering as he began with her ladyship, never was known before upon arth, and divil may burn me if it wasn't me own very two peepers that cotched him tipping her the wink out of one eye. Och, hon! If it wasn't meself thin that was mad as a Kilkenny cat I should like to be towled who it was. Let me inform you, Mounseer Mater Didons, said I, as perlite as iver ye seed, that it's not the gentall thing at all, and not for the likes o' you anyhow, to be after the ogling and a-goggling at her leddyship in that fashion, and just with that such another squazzy as it was I gived her flipper, all as much as to say, isn't it Sir Pathrick now, my jewel, that'll be able to the protesting o' you, my darlint, and then there comed another squazzy back, all by way of the answer. Through for you, Sir Pathrick, it said as plain as iver a squazzy said in the world, through for you, Sir Pathrick, mavourneen, and it's a proper nate gentleman ye are, that's God's truth. And with it she opened her two beautiful peepers till I believed they would ha come out of her head altogether and entirely, and she looked first as mad as a cat at Mounseer frog, and thin as smiling as all out o' doors at Meself. Thin, says he, the Willian, och-hon. And a wally wow, pulley wow, and then with that he shoved up his two shoulders till the divil the bit of his head was to be disgivered, and then he let down the two corners of his parotty trap, and thin not a hapworth more of the satisfaction could I get out o' the spalpeen. Believe me, my jewel, it was Sir Pathrick that was unreasonable mad thin, and the more by token that the Frenchman kept on with his winking at the widdy, and the widdy she kept on with the squazzing of my flipper, as much as to say, at him again, Sir Pathrick O'Grandison, mavourneen, so I just ripped out wid a big oath, and says I, ye little spalpeeny frog of a bog-throtting son of a bloody noun. And just thin what d'ye think it was that her leddyship did? Troth, she jumped up from the sofy as if she was bit, and made off through the door, while I turned my head round after her, in a complete bewilderment and boderation, and followed her with me two peepers. You percave I had a reason of my own for knowing that she couldn't get down the stairs altogether and entirely, for I knew very well that I had howled of her hand, for the divil the bit had I iver let it go. And says I, isn't it the last little bit of a mistake in the world that ye've been after the making, your leddyship? Come back now, that's a darlint, and I'll give ye your flipper. But af she went down the stairs like a shot, and then I turned round to the little French foreigner. Och-hon! If it wasn't his spalpeeny little paw that I had howled of in my own within thin it wasn't, that's all. And maybe it wasn't meself that just died then outright with the laughin', to behold the little chap when he found out that it wasn't the widdy at all that he had howled of all the time, but only Sir Pathrick O'Grandison. The old divil himself niver behiled sich a long face as he pettin. As for Sir Pathrick O'Grandison, Baronet, it wasn't for the likes of his riverence to be after the minding of a thrifle of a mistake. Ye may just say, though, for it's God's truth, that afore I left howled of the flipper of the spalpeen, which was not till after her leddyship's footman had kicked us both down the stairs, I gived it such a nate little broth of a squazzy as made it all up into raspberry jam. Wowly wow, says he, pulley wow, says he caught tam. And that's just the truth of the Rosson why he wears his left hand in a sling. Littleton Berry. The end.